Hello and welcome to Mary's Eclectic Interests. I'm your host, Sue Ellen Zagrabelny. Our guest today is Gary Legwold, author of Keep on Rolling, Life on the Lefse Trail and Getting Around. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Sue Ellen.
Before we get started on Keep on Rolling, you wrote a previous book about Lefse. Could you set the story up for our viewers and tell us a little bit about that book and how you got to write it and what that has to do with Keep on Rolling?
Yeah, that book was The Last Word on Lefse. It was written in 1992. And I wrote it because I didn't know how to write or didn't know how to make Lefse. My grandmother had died. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, how do you make Lefse? And he didn't know, and none of my aunts knew. And so I went down to the hardware store and bought a Lefse pin. And there was a recipe on there, and I said, how hard could this be? And I went home and I tried it. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I called it potato jerky. It was very tough. You could throw it to your dog, and that dog would teeth on that thing all day long. So I went to small towns throughout the upper Midwest, and I asked who the best Lefse makers were. And I invited myself into their house, and they rolled Lefse. They gave me recipes. They gave me these wonderful stories, and I put them in a book. It's called The Last Word on Lefse. And then 25 years later, I write Keep on Rolling, because I wanted to find out what the state of the Lefse Union was. At that time, in 1992, I was worried that just as in my family, I was worried about the Lefse tradition dying out, that people would just buy their Lefse and they wouldn't make it. So I wanted to preserve this tradition. Well, 25 years later, I basically went out and established this Lefse trail and interviewed about 52 Lefse makers. I probably have interviewed more Lefse makers than anyone else alive. Mm-hmm. Not much competition for that honor, but I did that. But anyway, I wanted to see if this Lefse making tradition had withstood the test of time. And it has. Basically, the bottom line, it has. It's a wonderful tradition. People are coming on strong. Younger people are coming in, so I'm very happy.
That's terrific. What inspired you, besides looking at the state of the Lefse Union, as you said? Is there anything else that inspired you to write this second book?
Well, as I said, I just love talking to Lefse makers, first of all. You talk with a Lefse maker and you establish this bond. So I had done that in The Last Word on Lefse. I wanted to do it again. So I ran an ad in the Viking magazine, which is the magazine for the Sons of Norway. I was looking for Lefse makers all over the country, and not just the upper Midwest. And many people wrote to me and called me, and so we did these interviews. I would travel to them. And I wanted to establish this Lefse trail, because this Lefse trail is 13 stops in 6 states. And 6 of those stops are Lefse making factories. Fascinating places where you can see Lefse being mass produced and the challenges that go into that. And then other places are festivals and museums where Lefse is featured. Now imagine that, a museum with Lefse being featured. But there is a trail that starts in Wisconsin, goes up through Minnesota, North Dakota, Montana, and then all the way out to Portland, Oregon.
Oh my goodness. Could you talk about the transitions that you were going through in the second book, in writing the second book? I understand that some things happened in your life that maybe had an impetus to bring you to write this?
Sure. First of all, I had taken a job where when you write a book, it's a different kind of writing. You have this room to breathe. And it had been a long time since I had written a book. And I didn't know if I could do it again. I'm 25 years older. And I didn't know if I had my writing chops. And I'd also had a heart attack 12 years ago. And, as you age, you just question whether you still have it. And I still had it. In fact, as I was writing the first and second chapter, I took some liberties that I hadn't done with my first book. And my editor was Kathy Weflin, and she still is my editor. And I was very nervous when I turned those first 2 chapters into her because they were different than the last word on Lefse. And I didn't want to lose my Lefse audience by talking about this. And there's my mentor, Linda Bankston, was in a hospital and she was dying. And so it was a bit darker. Mm-hmm. And but that's part of life. You have these dark moments.
Yes.
And throughout it all, I wanted to keep Lefse as my touchstone. So I tried it, and Kathy loved the first 2 chapters, and so I took a deep breath and I says, okay, I'm ready to go. But it also, I think my maturity as a writer shows in this latest book. There's more poetry. I've written a Lefse song. And I've tried to keep Lefse light, but it has meaning to us as we age, just as any traditional food. It has meaning to us as we age, and I wanted to honor that tradition.
Okay. What inspired the title of the book, Keep on Rolling, and the subtitle of it?
Well, Keep on Rolling, when I would sign my first book, The Last Word on Lefse, I would, sometimes I would say Sue Ellen and try something clever. And then that got to be a little bit unwieldy to do that. So I just came up with Keep on Rolling. Sue Ellen, Keep on Rolling, Gary Legwold. And then as I thought about that, Keep on Rolling, it has the Lefse making application, but it also talks about life. It's a good philosophy. You just keep on rolling. Stuff happens to you, you just keep on rolling. You can have surgeries, life events, good things, bad things, and if your philosophy is just keep on rolling. So I use that in I like that as my title, and then my subtitle, Life on the Lefse Trail. I had established this Lefse Trail, which I recommend for anybody, and then learning to get around. Always in my books, I want to impart that techniques and tips about learning to make Lefse. That's why people come to the book. Mm-hmm. They want to make Lefse. They want the stories, but they want to make Lefse, and they want to make good Lefse. So as I said, I interviewed at least 52, who gave me these wonderful quotes and tips about mm-hmm. how they make Lefse, and so they're all in the book.
Could you talk a little bit more about the Lefse Trail? You mentioned that it was in 6 states, but are the towns big towns, little towns? You mentioned there were some mass-produced Lefse factories. Talk a little bit about that, please.
It starts in Blair, Wisconsin. So most of the towns are small towns. It starts in Blair, Wisconsin, at Countryside Lefse, a big plant there. It goes over to Decorah, Iowa, where the Vesterheim, the Norwegian American Museum is. Many Lefse rolling pins are there, historic Lefse rolling pins. Then it goes over to Cresco, Iowa, where Bethany Housewares is. This is where all the Lefse grills are made. Then it goes up to Rushford, Minnesota, where Norseland Kitchens, another Lefse plant, is. Then it goes up to St. Paul, Northwest Casting, where the aluminum grills are actually cast. Then it goes to Starbuck, Minnesota, which is the home of the world's largest Lefse. They have a museum there that honors this occasion that happened in 1983 as part of their centennial celebration. And then it goes to Osakis, Minnesota, where Jacob's Lefse is. Then it goes up to Gonvick, where Mrs. Olson's Lefse is. Then over to West Fargo, where Freddie's Lefse. All those last three are Lefse-making plants. Then it goes up to the Norse Husfest in Minot, Minnesota, or Minot, North Dakota. Huge Scandinavian festival every September. I call it like the Scandinavian Super Bowl. 60,000 people go there, and
oh my goodness.
yeah, so you can get all sorts of Lefse and great entertainment. Then it goes over to northeast Montana, Granrud's Lefse, another Lefse-making plant. Opheim is in, Granrud's is in Opheim, and Opheim is like 89 people, population 89, and I've driven there, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, 10 miles from the Canadian border. And then the final stop is Portland, Oregon, where Viking Soul Food is a Lefse wrap food truck. Only Lefse wrap food truck you'll find in the world. And these wonderful wraps, very tasty. They're made in this wonderful little food truck in Portland, Oregon. So those are the stops.
Oh, how interesting. That sounds like a lot of fun. So basically there's small towns, population 89, for instance. I am acquainted with Starbuck. I don't know the other towns particularly, but they sound like fun places to get to know people and make some contacts. Now I'd like to take some time to talk about the stories that you include in your book. And there's several of them that we talked about off camera. And the one that kind of tickled my funny bone the most were the Lefse larcenists. Could you impart that story for us?
Yeah, you had to be there to hear the story. Kirsten Desjardins is her name, and she talks about growing up in this Norwegian family, and the grandfather was a minister, but he had a weakness for stealing Lefse. That is, at the dinner table they would roll their Lefse and put butter and sugar on it, and and then he would distract them and then steal their Lefse.
Oh, fun.
To the point where people figured him out, and they would want to steal his back, but he would roll his up and put it in his coat pocket and protect it. Well, his weakness spread to the next generation and then the next. And Kirsten talked very tongue-in-cheek about how this traumatized her as she was growing up. And she couldn't quite relax at the dinner table because he was a master at distraction. And then she picked up this trait of being a master at distraction. Sue Ellen, look over there. And then
and
she
away
would
goes
snatch
the
her
Lefse.
Lefse. So,
and away goes the Lefse.
yeah.
Okay. You mentioned Hawk Creek Lutheran Church, the Church of the Lefse Ministry. What's that about?
That's in Sacred Heart, Minnesota, and that's in my latest book, Keep on Rolling. In 2016, lightning struck the church. And up until then, they've had this Lefse ministry, and they would make Lefse, 5,000 rounds of Lefse every fall, and they would sell much of it and use that money to fund the church. Now, small-town churches are not a given. They struggle mightily with programming, with retaining their members, and so they need something to rally around. And this pulled in at least a third of the church to actually take part in the making of the Lefse and the distributing of the Lefse. They would give away to needy people in Sacred Heart Lefse rounds. And in every package, they would slip in a prayer or some sort of inspirational message. Mm-hmm. And it was a way for the church to keep on going. One of the first things people asked after the church burned, are you going to keep your Lefse ministry going? And they all said yes. I mean, this was a perfect opportunity to just shut it down. But the Lefse ministry has kept them going. And much of the credit goes to Reverend Daniel Bowman. He's like 6'4", and he came up with this Lefse ministry. And unlike many administrators who have a great idea and say, you go do it and then goodbye, he actually is rolling. He's got 3 tables, and he rolls this station, moves to the second, rolls, moves to the third, rolls, and somebody else is taking the balls, putting them on the rolling surface, taking the rolled out Lefse to the grill. So he just rolls, moves. His tables are elevated, so he doesn't have to stoop down so far. Mm-hmm. And it's quite a production.
Oh, how fun.
And he's got a little bit of a hernia, so he just battles through it, and it's an inspiration. And he's a man of faith. I mean, you talk about faith, and some people just exude it. And you sit next to him, and you can just feel it. And so he's after every service, the kids will walk out, and he'll squat down on his hands or on his knees, and he'll give every little kid a hug, and it's just wonderful to see. So I have a great admiration for him.
Yes.
I call him the Holy Roller, by the way.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I think this would be a really good time for you to sing your Lefse song.
Oh, well, I have 2 of them, but I'll sing the shorter one. One, the Keep On Rollin', is in this book, and I hired Eric Sherburne to write the music, and I wrote the words. And it's about, I didn't want to write another corny Lefse song. I wanted to honor the tradition and the resiliency of especially the older Lefse makers, and who have they keep our traditions going. Mm-hmm. So that's in this one. But the one that I will sing now is about perfectionism. And Lefse makers come to my class, as I did to my Lefse making experience, burdened by perfectionism. We want to do things perfect. Anne Lamott has this quote about perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor. And it's so true. It just ruins everything. But Lefse, a lot of people come to my class and they want to make this perfect Lefse, and it doesn't always work out that way. So I observed this enough in myself and in other people that I said, okay, I'm going to write a poem. And the poem is called Lefse for a Purpose. And I took the lyrics to the poem and made it into a song that I borrowed from Mac Davis, who wrote a song called, "Oh Lord, it is hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way." So it goes like this. Oh Lord, it is hard to make Lefse that is perfect in every way, to roll it so round and so thin. Ho, 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 ha, ha, that will be the day. To roll Lefse, yeah, sure is to love it. No matter how thick, tough, or dead. And if Lefse was supposed to be just right, we'd call Lefse just right instead.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you very
bravo.
much.
That's Elvis, though.
Yeah. Maybe Elvis had a little bit of Norwegian in him. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be true. That might be true. So we're going to be going into the kitchen in a little while. And so before we do that, could you talk a little bit about the ingredients for Lefse And I have some questions about why you choose what you do and what kind of tools you use. You've alluded to some of those things, but start out talking about what are the ingredients for Lefse.
Well, potato Lefse there's potato Lefse and then there's Lefse that's not made with potatoes. Most of the Lefse that you'll encounter is potato Lefse. It's potato. My recipe has potato, butter, sugar, cream, salt, and flour. So that's it. And you need a Lefse grill. You don't need a Lefse grill, but it really helps because it's a 16-inch wide grill, and you need that space to, and it doesn't have a lip, you need that space to turn the Lefse as you prepare it. You need Lefse rolling pins. You need turning sticks. Mm-hmm. And you need a rolling surface, a pastry cloth, so that your Lefse doesn't stick. That was my problem when I was learning. I didn't have a pastry cloth. I didn't even know what a pastry cloth was. So I would try it on the countertop, and it would always stick, so I'd throw more flour under there. And more flour makes for tougher Lefse, and sure enough, I had potato jerky. Mm-hmm. So those are the basic ingredients.
Mm-hmm. What's hard Lefse then? What is that?
Hard Lefse is milk, lard or Crisco, salt, sugar, and flour. So there's no potatoes. And at Story City, Iowa, in my first book, that's all they make down there. That whole area is all they make is that kind of Lefse. In fact, they went to the Nordic Fest in Decorah, Iowa, and all they saw was potato Lefse. And they said, "Where's the Lefse?" "Well, this is Lefse." No, your Lefse has got potatoes in it. Ours doesn't. And so it goes back to different parts of Norway. Just people rolled their Lefse different and had different ingredients, and that came over from Norway.
Okay. What kind of potatoes would a person use?
Well, the standard answer is russets because they're drier and they're more mealy, and so they don't have a lot of moisture in them. But I have used all sorts of potatoes. In fact, a friend of mine is going to write a blog about blue Lefse.
Ooh, yum.
Yeah, he uses a blue potato. It's an heirloom. He grows these heirloom potatoes, and one of them is blue, a blue variety. And so I'm looking forward to trying that. So you can try all sorts of different types. The moisture content is the worry. You don't want a lot of moisture because you have to use a lot of flour, but you can work around that as you get an experience. A Lefse maker, Bonnie Jacobs, once told me, if you really want to learn how to make good Lefse, here's my best tip. Do it more than once a year. Because the more you do it, the more you figure things out. And there's all sorts of different ways of making Lefse. And so do it more than once a year.
That makes good sense. That makes very good sense. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the world of Lefse? I think the tip from Bonnie Jacobs makes a lot of sense. How often do you make Lefse?
Oh, I make it, it used to be I only made it in the fall as it led up to the holidays. But now I make it, I've been making it once or twice a month because I've started the blog on lefseking.com, and I want to keep the world of Lefse goes dark basically Christmas Eve because people make their Lefse and then they don't do it for another year. So I want to keep that stage alive, the Lefse stage alive. And so I developed these Lefse wraps. 13 original Lefse wrap recipes are in the book. I hired a chef named Merritt Campbell. She came up with these wonderful ingredients. So you can have these Lefse wrap parties throughout the year. And you can use it throughout the year to bring in the younger people. you and I were talking before, if I want to get my kids and grandkids off the couch and away from the TV, all I have to do is bring out the Lefse grill, because they love to make Lefse. They love to eat Lefse. It's one thing that we have in our favor as Norwegians or Scandinavians. Lefse tastes great. And if we want to bring in younger people into our traditions, that's our secret weapon. And let me just end with this idea of preserving traditions. I mean, that's why I write my books. I've talked to so many people who, they look at me at Christmas especially, and they're searching for traditions. And they are so envious that we have got all of these Scandinavian traditions that many within the fold, so to speak, they kind of take for granted. Mm-hmm. But there are many who are outside the traditions, who don't know what to do, what to prepare at the holidays, and they're looking for tradition. So I'm grateful that Lefse is in my quiver. I can use that to bring in people.
Gary, how did you publish your book? Can you talk a little bit about the process? You've talked about writing it, interviewing the people. How did you get your book published?
Conrad Henry Press published the book, and basically it's available through my website, lefseking.com, www.lefseking.com. It's also available in Scandinavian gift shops and bookstores throughout the country. But I'm very proud of my website, because not only can you get my 4 books, but you can also get these heirloom Lefse rolling pins that are made by members of the Minnesota Woodturners Association. The idea there is to pass on to your kids and grandkids a beautiful piece of art that's also very functional. You use it and then you display it. You can get my song, Keep on Rolling there, the score, for people who like to play the piano or sing the song. Mm-hmm. And you can read the blog. I have many guests. I mean, this Lefse community is wide, and everybody's got a Lefse story. So the blog is there, and that's included.
Thank you, Gary Legwold, for joining us on Mary's Eclectic Interest today. And look for our cooking feature on the Lefse King Part 2. And Gary is going to be going into the kitchen demonstrating how to make Lefse. We'll see you then.